Commanders. Let's talk about the Commanders this season, right? Because first off, they traded a second and third round pick for Carson Wentz this offseason after the Colts literally gave him away, gave Carson Wentz and a second round pick to you. They get Carson Wentz. He plays the first few games. They're god awful. Like their team, part of it's not all Carson Wentz's fault. That offensive line was pretty abysmal to start the season. 9 sacks in one particular game. And then he gets hurt. They play Taylor Heineke, and they get some momentum going. They start winning some games. They get back in the playoff race. They're actually in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They make it into the playoffs. They're at the highest point. They're the 6th seed. And then this game, they're facing the Browns, who've already been eliminated from the playoffs. And they decided to bring back Carson Wentz, who hasn't played since week 6. Try to make this make sense for me, because I really don't know what they were thinking.
So, first of all, they weren't thinking. And that's first of all. So, this is what happens. And I hate when teams do this. When they don't have a defined starter, they'll play the other player at the worst opportune time. Classic example. Do I think Kenny Pickett's really good now? Yes. Do I think the Steelers started him in the worst stretch possible? Yeah. I think if you're going to start Kenny Pickett and you know that, you have to start him at the beginning of the year. You start Carson Wentz to begin the year. Your offensive line is clearly not gelling, can't pull it together. Then Carson Wentz gets hurt. Cool. That's fine. No problem with that. That's not his fault, not something he can control, especially because Carson Wentz was in Philadelphia and then went to the Colts, and then he's learning another entirely new system. So that's hard. It's not like teams gel right away, and we've seen this happen where it takes players a few weeks, sometimes until like week 7 or 8 is usually when you start getting acclimated to the system. Carson Wentz goes out. You bring in Taylor Heineke, and then everyone's like, Taylor Heineke? And then he starts playing well, and then you get some momentum, and then what happens? You lose the game to the Giants that you should have won, because there's a blatant pass interference call they didn't call. The ref screwed you over telling Terry McLaurin he was set. And then what'd he do? Throw the flag like, oh, he's out of position. And it's like, so it's like, you should have won that game. Okay. That's not Taylor Heineke's fault. I felt like you guys were in that game, grinding it out. And it's not like you have the most talent in the world. And then you go up against the San Francisco 49ers, which have had the most dominant defense in the NFL. Made Tom Brady look like, I don't know, scrub when they played, and he's the greatest quarterback of all time. We just saw him throw for 432 yards and 4 total touchdowns. So they make Tom Brady look like that. They make Taylor Heineke look awful. Taylor Heineke looks lost. Taylor Heineke is struggling. They bench Taylor Heineke. Then they bring in Carson Wentz, and then they're like, oh, it's garbage time, but Carson Wentz, wow, he kind of looked pretty good. He's kind of bringing the Commanders back, and they're like, you know what we're going to do? Start Carson Wentz in the most important game of the year, and it's a win or go home game. If you lose this game, you're probably going to be eliminated from the playoffs, because most of the other teams were playing inferior teams like the Seahawks and the Lions and the Packers were. And then you get to the press conference where you throw in the guy who hasn't started since week 6 in an offense he still hasn't mastered, and teammates he still doesn't have 100% chemistry because he hasn't started since week 6. And then you throw him in the most important game of the year against Denzel Ward, against Myles Garrett, against a Browns team that's really trying to push Deshaun Watson to figure out the playbook, figure out the system. Deshaun Watson actually shows up in this game. Deshaun Watson actually looked kind of nice in this game. Their defense actually showed up and looked really good in this game. Carson Wentz is like, you know what I'm going to do? It's win or go home. I'm going to throw it into double coverage. You lose this game because you played the guy that clearly no one on the team wants to be there. Clearly they want Taylor Heineke to be the guy, and clearly he inspires the team a lot more than Carson Wentz does. And then you get to the press conference, and then they're like, how do you feel, Ron, that you started Carson Wentz instead of Taylor Heineke and got eliminated from the playoffs? He's like, wait, we got eliminated from the playoffs? What the hell are you doing? You didn't know you could get eliminated from the playoffs, and you start the guy who hasn't started a game since week 6. I get trying to save Taylor Heineke against San Francisco, But you play the guy who's played all year and who is playing pretty good and your teammates actually like and want to be there. And you didn't know that you could miss the playoffs if you lost this game? Are you fucking kidding me?
See, if this was his first misstep of the season, I'd go, well, he made the wrong decision. You know what? Coaches make wrong decisions all the time. But this isn't the first time. This might not even be his second time. This could be his third time. Earlier this season, when they asked, what they felt about Carson Wentz, he was not shy on how he felt about it, how he didn't care for the move. So that burned his bridges. And then, like you mentioned, it's week 17, win or go home. You have Taylor Heineke, who's played most of the season, and why you're in the playoff race to begin with. And you start Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz throws for 3 picks. He looks terrible, to be completely honest. Carson Wentz, QBR of 14 to end the game. And
worse than Baker.
And Carson Wentz, God bless his soul. I feel for him because he's bounced around a lot.
Same.
But
nothing.
This is like the end of his career at this point. I still think he gets a backup job somewhere. Yeah. But these are the end of the days of him starting.